What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Knives of the Round Table. My name is Marco, and today we're going to be talking about the War Junkie edition version of the Todd Begg Citadel. And so the War Junkie series is the production side of Todd Begg knives. So Todd Begg, he's a custom knife maker, and not too long ago he came up with the model, the Citadel, as a custom, and it's remarkably similar to this, obviously with much better finishing, but very similar to what you see here. And then he got an OEM to produce this for him, and so his War Junkie edition is the production version of the knife. So let me give you a tour of the knife, and then we can get started with the review. This is a big boy, and there's a lot going on here. So we'll talk about that. So what we have here is a huge Bowie style blade to the bolster, full 4 inches, a full 4-inch blade of S35 VN, and so, like I said, this is the War Junkie edition. What you have on the blade is something that you don't really see, especially in production knives, which is a carbon fiber inlay in the blade. Oftentimes, you see carbon fiber inlays in the scales, but not usually in the blade. That's a little bit unusual. So that's one thing. You've got, it's a liner lock. And you've got these on the scales. You have this milling on the titanium that kind of splits the carbon fiber. So that's it's really designed forward. I believe this is made by Artisan Cutlery. I will confirm, but I think it's Artisan Cutlery. And then he's got the kind of very traditional Todd Begg pocket clip with the ceramic ball as a retention. You have a very large back spacer that kind of carries a long ways here, and you've got blue liners as you can see here. You've got a lanyard hole in the back, some jumping in the back as well. So this is kind of what you've got. So Todd Begg, and I don't know all of the specifics of the story. So Todd Begg used to be part of Begg Knives. He used to design a lot of the knives, and I think they had a falling out. So Begg Knives retained a lot of the designs from Todd Begg, and they still produce those. And Todd Begg is now his own knife maker and his own brand. And this is one of the first folding knives that he's brought to production as the new brand. So just as a comparison, because it's, Todd Begg, his designs have never been subtle. Okay, they're really designed forward. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of things, and the fact that they tried to do the Citadel as a production, it's fairly ambitious. But let me give you the other Todd Begg design that I have. So this is the Begg Mini Bodega, and so this is his design back when he was still with Begg Knives. But you can see, you can't really, these are not similar knives, right? Especially because of the size. But you can see that the design, right? It's got a lot going on, right? It's got milling, it's got this, especially in the back, right? You have some milling, and then you have this kind of fuller with the speed holes, and then it's matched that on the lock bar. There's a lot of things going on. So Todd Begg is known for, Nick Shabazz in one of his reviews of a Begg knife described it as rococo, and I think that's probably, it's not a word that I will use, but it's probably appropriate. right? It's really in your face. Now, this is a huge knife. Let me give you some size comparisons just to give you an idea of how huge it is. That is the Parrot 2. So you can see even the Parrot 2, which is not a small knife, it's a full-size knife. It's kind of small and puny compared to it. And this is the Parrot 3. So you can see it is longer, bigger, thicker, chunkier, everything. I think the only thing that it might not be bigger is in carry profile, but still, you know, the Citadel is so much thicker, you know, than if I give you the comparison in thickness, it's so much thicker than the Parrot 2. It's a big knife. Okay, make no mistake. This is huge. It's, you know, I had a full-size Crooked River from Benchmade that had a similar kind of similar blade profile and blade length, but even that feels tiny compared to this. This one just it's much thicker and chunkier. It feels heavy. I don't think there's any milling side because this is a heavy sucker. Now, it's not a good size comparison, but for the sake of completeness, that's the full-size bug out, and this is the mini bug out, right? This is not really the size comparison here. But it's to give you a sense as to the size of this knife. So let's start with ergonomics, and the ergonomics of this knife. In my hand, it feels fairly good. It's because I wear large gloves, so I have a larger hand. It feels my hand really nicely. This is not really a finger choil. It's kind of an oversized sharpening choil, but I can't really get I feel like I'm falling into that little corner there. So it's not really meant to be up here. It's not meant to really be choked up. But if you can see, so in my large hand, you can see I've got almost a full 3/4 to an inch of space back here. So this, for people with extra large hands or XXL hands, this is going to be a perfect knife. Okay, and this is way bigger than I like. I usually try to stay at 3¼ inch blade or 3½ inch blade. This is a full 4 inches, and it carries a lot bigger than 4 inches. It's just thick and chunky and massive. And part of it is that there's some contouring in this direction, and because you've got carbon fiber inlays and you've got liners, so you've got the thickness of the liner that has to be a certain thickness, and then the thickness of the scale itself, or the overlay of the titanium, has to be thick enough so you can inlay a carbon fiber and then still contour it, right? So that yields a very thick knife, even with the carbon fiber inlays, which is extensive, right? It's everywhere. This is a very heavy knife. It's super chunky. I'll find out the exact weight, and I'll put it on the screen. But yeah, this one is really super chunky. But because it's thicker, because it's chunky, you feel like I'm holding more of a fixed blade, you know, with a thicker handle, with a, you know, something that you want to put your weight behind it. Now, this seems like a knife that it's not for heavy use, right? With the inlays and all this kind of elegant or, you know, detailed touches. But in the hand, it feels like you could put some serious work with this knife. It feels there is a little bit of hot spot on the clip, you know, when you really bear down on it. But other than that, it's fairly decent. Now, it's a little bit weird because it's got like several positions that you could do. Obviously, a hammer grip, right? But a saber grip, you see there's like a little divot right here in the scale, and it kind of wants you to put your finger right here. But you could also, there's like this curve in the blade that you could put your thumb right there. And obviously there's this one up here. So if you wanted to do a more controlled cut up here in the front, you could also do that. You know, obviously if you want to do a pinch grip, you know, and put your index finger back here, you can do that as well. So there's several kind of locations where you can set your fingers in this knife. It's just so long that you've got options here. So ergonomics is fairly decent. Obviously, you need to have large hands or bigger. I would not, if you have, heck, I think that the least size hand you could have to get this knife really working for you is large, and even at large, it's a tad bit big for my hand. So that's ergonomics. Now, cutting with this, it's okay. Okay, so this is a Bowie style blade, so it's super pokey. So for that, it works really well. It's not the sliciest knife I have. It's actually kind of far from it. Let me give you a thickness of blade comparison here. So I can't fit the thickness of the blade. So obviously it's thicker than the blade of a Para 2, including washers, and it's even thicker than that. So it's a fairly thick blade, and then the flat carries, I don't know, 30% of the blade down, so you never get to a really slicey knife. It's kind of a there's a little bit of a contradiction here, in that you got a thick blade for kind of heavy duty use, but at the same time you've got like all of this elegance in the carbon fiber and all of these things, which makes it seem like a more art knife than it is a heavy duty knife. So there's a little bit of a contradiction there. I think if you have this knife, you're not buying it for heavy use. It's more of a showpiece, more of a conversation starter kind of a thing, but not really a prime EDC to get some work done. But that's probably not what this knife is for, at least in my opinion, right? Then we get to the action, and the action is actually very, very, very nice. It's got deployment is super nice. It's got beautiful, smooth drop shot action. The deployment is always reliable. I've tried to fail it. I've been able to fail it once, but because the blade is so heavy, as soon as it breaks the detent, the momentum of so much steel just carries it out. So, and then you got it. You don't have a double clutch. It kind of jumps on the detent ball. I guess it's got I haven't taken it apart, but my best guess is that it's got a really nice detent ramp, because this, the sounds that it makes, it just works beautifully. Really nice action. My one complaint is I don't understand it. The access. So you've got a little bit of an indentation, a little bit of a divot on the liner lock here on the lock side, but the access, you got a thick blade, but because the liner engages so solidly, it even goes past this edge of the blade, you actually end up with a fairly small amount of access to disengage, which is kind of surprising, because it's something that he hasn't done in the past. In the past, if you take a look at the mini bodega here, on the show side, he's done this little cutout here, so the lock side actually protrudes from this side. So even though it has a divot, you can see he's done the same divot here on the lock bar. The access on this one is tremendously better than the access on this one. I think this one, this groove right here, if you just do it, man, 1/8 of an inch in a little bit further, it would have been a fidget monster, just because the action on this is so smooth, so nice. It is drop shot, but and the sound that it makes. Look, I'm gonna shut up for a second. I'm gonna let you listen to it. It's a really nice action, really nice deployment action. It is smooth as silk. It is drop shot. It is excellent. It would be a fidget monster if you could just have a little bit of an extra access to the lock bar. It's just unfortunate. I don't understand it. I've met Todd Begg, and Todd Begg's a big guy. This knife would probably fit his hand perfectly. Okay, he's got like big bear paws, and I don't see how he gets this in his hand, and he's happy with the disengagement here. It's strange to me. I think it's a miss when knife makers don't make the access to the lock bar easy, especially when you got something with an action that is as smooth and as great as this is. Now, let's talk fit and finish. And fit and finish, I'm not sure how to put it. So I'll try. If you have a very plain knife, right? If you've got a really plain knife, you take, your plain Sebenza, okay, just titanium. It's a lot easier to achieve kind of perfect fit and finish on a knife like that, right? Why? Because there's not a lot going on, right? Obviously, as soon as you add the overlays on the Sebenza, there's a level of complexity that you've added that in order to achieve the same level of perfect fit and finish, it's harder to do, right? As you make it inlays, as you add complexity to the knife, then you start there's more pitfalls, and I think that's what's happened here. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of carbon fiber inlay, and if you see this piece of carbon fiber that wraps around here is a single piece. So you can imagine that trying to cut this piece to the exact curvature of all this and then inlaying it, it's a hard task, and they've done that for the most part really well, with the exception of little places like right there. It doesn't fit quite as snugly. On this side, for the most part, they did a good job. They struggled a little bit in some of the corners of the one in the blade, of the inlay of the blade. You can see a little bit of gaps here and there, but it's hard to fault them for that, because it's such an ambitious knife, and I think it's $450, maybe $500. There's a lot here. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of work that goes into this. Some of the tiny little things bug me, but I think overall it's a fairly good value piece for the size and for what you're getting here. Even if they didn't manage perfection, I think it would increase the price several orders of magnitude to achieve kind of perfection on something as complex as this. Now, overall, fit and finish is decent. They've done this kind of semi polish on the blade. The only thing that I don't like when they do that, or when it's done at production levels, is that the transitions between the flat and the grind of the blade and the swedge, it gets this little rounding right at the corner when they kind of put it on it seems like they put it on a buffing wheel, and it kind of rounds the corners instead of having like this nice and sharp transition. Let me see if I can show you. So if you see the mini bodega, the transition between the flat and the dark right here, it's a crisp, defined line. It's just there's a clean break there that you don't get over here. You get like this kind of just little, ever so subtly rounding, which is not, it obviously doesn't affect the function of the knife. It's just easier to do it that way. So, and by sharp transition, I mean, if you see the transition between the swedge and the top and this kind of flat piece of the top of the knife, You see that's a really nice sharp transition, but you don't get the same from the swedge to the grind. You don't get the exact same sharp transition. So overall, very nice, very decent fit and finish. Not quite at, for example, at what Riyadh produces, but pretty darn good. Pretty darn good is what I would say it is, and especially for, like I said, this is a big bite, right? And they eat just a little bit more than they could chew, just a tad bit. Now, the airing of grievances. Okay, what don't I like about this? Well, as I've mentioned before, the lock bar access is probably my biggest gripe, because I think it would be such a nice knife and such a fidget monster if you could just have a little bit better access. Again, the transition between the different, the flat and the grind and the swedge and the grind, all of those that are a little bit rounded, I wish that they weren't. But I think I'm going to tell you my biggest gripe on this knife. Todd Begg is known for creating the jeweled ice fit, or the jeweled ice finish on titanium. And you can see that on this mini bodega. You can see it on the clip right here. He also did it, hopefully, let me see if I can get you. You can see it on the back spacer on the inside. You can see that there. Now it's also on this side, because there's jumping, you can't really see it. You can only see it here. You can only see it on this portion, but you can see it fairly clearly on the clip. So it's like, or I don't know if you call it jeweled ice or cracked ice or something, basically something ice. But it's something that is that Todd Begg is known for. He's known for his, Rococo designs. He's known for his ceramic ball on the clip, and he's known for this finish. And he's actually shared it with other knife makers. I wish, can you imagine that in this finish? I almost wish that I could send this to him, to have him put a jeweled ice finish on it, just so that I know that that's the finish on the custom, and maybe that's his differentiation. But this is a production version of the mini bodega. This is Riyadh, and he's got that in here. Now, one thing that I think is interesting, they did something different here. Let me see if I can explain this. The two little offsets that come off of the titanium scale are part of the scale on the mini bodega. You see, this is an integral part that was milled into the mini bodega, if you can see that. Now, on the Citadel, they're kind of standoffs is what they are. Now, while I think that this is harder to produce, this is more expensive to produce, and this shows more artistry, I think this is kind of a better design, because if you ever take off your clip and put it back and strip, you only have to replace that standoff right there. If you strip this one, then you've kind of screwed yourself. There's nothing you can do, because the scale's right, because it's part of the scale. But it is a difference that I saw in the design. It's very clear, this back jimping. I see the use in the mini bodega, because as I close it, I kind of use the back of the jimping. Obviously, in the Citadel, I'm nowhere close to being able to reach this jimping. Probably people with much larger hands than mine have a use for that. So that's my review of the War Junkie edition of the Citadel by Todd Begg. I've had this knife for about 10 days. You can do a pre-order, and then you kind of get on the list, and then they send it to you whenever you manage to, when your spot is called. But very nice. You have to be into very, very, very large knives to enjoy this. If you're not into large knives, trust me, it's It even feels bigger than it looks, and it is huge. Okay, don't kid yourself. This is not one that you're gonna, oh, let me try and see. I mean, the tip to butt length is over 9 inches. So, you know, just be aware. This is not the one where you wanna, oh, it's probably gonna be fine. It doesn't look like big. No, it is big and it feels big, and it is everything that it's every inch of those 9 inches. Guys, hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, then like and subscribe only if you think that I earned it. And until I see you at the next one, take care.